Spiderman, Spiderman does whatever a spider can. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with our special guest, Eden Cummins.
Hello!
This is the podcast where Matt and Todd and special guest Eden Cummins went and saw a movie at not our local Regal Cinema, but another Regal Cinema. And then we're going to sit in the parking lot here in this parking structure. We're going to talk about it. We're going to share some feelings. This is going to be a hard one, but it is a spoiler-free review. And hopefully it helps you decide if you're going to see this movie. I am Todd Dober.
And I'm Matt Malloy. And yes, we're here for another episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where tonight we saw Spider-Man, No Way Home. And we'll be talking a little bit about that. There are many spoilers that we could spoil for you, but we're going to try to steer clear of spoilers. And to that end, as I tell you who's in this movie, I'm not telling you who's in this movie. I'm telling you who you know is in this movie. Tom Holland is in this movie. Zendaya is in this movie. Jon Favreau is in this movie. Marissa Tomei is in this movie.
I would just say cut it there.
Cut it!
I've got one. I mean, there's one more.
Who's the one more?
Benedict Cumberbatch is in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're
Right.
all aware of Benedict Cumberbatch.
Right.
Yeah.
As Doctor Strange. Yes. That's not a spoiler. If you have seen any trailer for this movie whatsoever, he plays a major role. So, and that's all we'll tell you. There's other people in this movie who you'll be delighted, as we were. I'll speak for us and say we were delighted to see pop up. But what is this movie about? Well, this movie follows on the heels of the last Spider-Man movie, which is called Far From Home. Do I have the right? Yes?
Yes.
Good. Where just sort of at the end of that movie, Spider-Man's, identity is revealed and he's kind of blamed for the death of another person, and everything kind of spins out of control in his world, and this picks right up there. We've got Spider-Man dealing with that and trying to also start his senior year of high school, and that is not going too well because of conspiracy theorists and people who want to stalk him, basically, are the people who are ruining his life. So he has this idea, and he goes to talk to Doctor Strange, and he's like, hey, you're magic. Can you do some magic and make everyone forget who I am? And Doctor Strange is like, ha, of course I'll do that. What could ever go wrong? Well, this movie is about what happens and how it goes wrong. He does try and cast a spell, but it ends up like ripping the space-time continuum and then exposing parts of the multiverse to the core piece of Marvel world that we're used to. And people get kind of sucked across that barrier. And then the rest of the movie is spent with Spider-Man trying to fix that, and trying to, stick to his morals and his character and all the kind words that Aunt May could ever tell him. And I think that's probably what I'll say about this movie is that. So, Todd, your thoughts?
I have a ton of thoughts, but I'm not sure. I can't share most of them because we are spoiler free.
Yeah.
But I'll get some of the little nitpicky negatives out of the way, and I will put up a warning. This is super nitpicky of me, and that's just, we're going gut reactions here.
Warning noted.
Yeah. So
carry on.
Something I had a hard time with in this movie, and it wasn't major, is that I never thought I'd say this because Tom Holland looks so young all the time, but he has aged out of high school. Like, I was really like, this is the first time I was distracted by the fact that he's playing a 17-year-old, and now he's really starting to look like he's 25, which is his actual age, I think. Nitpicky, I know. This has a really engaging story, and overall, it's incredibly engaging. It just keeps you for me, I was hooked, and I think this is the first time this has ever happened. I bought some Junior Mints and I didn't even open them. Once the movie started, I just didn't. I was like, I came back to it. I was like, maybe it's time, and I was like, no, it's not time. I need to watch what's happening. So
the time never came.
And there's just little things that bother me. Like, there's a couple of times that people are ripping webs, like regular people, and I'm like, you can't do that. Like, in the scene before, we've seen webs hold up cars, and then here's this regular person just grabbing it and pulling it down. Again, super nitpicky. I am a little burnt out on the fact that in the MCU, the heroes keep creating their own problems. Like, it's just happened a lot in a sense of not being responsible enough to not do stupid things, like a spell that can endanger the world. So I'm just a little burnt out on that type of story, because we've had it a lot in the sense of, like, and granted, most of it was Stark and he's not around anymore, but yeah, I'm a little burnt out on that story. But now moving on to the positive, I had a really great time with this movie. I was super engaged. I felt like my bladder was going to burst at the end of the movie because I really, really had to go. I thought I was just going to pee my pants, and there was no option for me to leave. Like, I could not leave the theater because I was so engaged. There's some great performances in this movie, I think. A lot of stellar acting. And special effects are pretty good, but you expect that now with all Marvel movies, I feel. They pretty much know what they're doing in that department. Yeah, I mean, like, it's harder for me. I can't go into, like, all the nuances of why I, like, really, really like this movie, because it'll just be full of spoilers, so I'm not going to do that. But I'll get right to the point of answering the question. My opinion, should you see this movie in theaters? Absolutely. Like, even if you're a loose Marvel fan, or even if you're not a Marvel fan, like, this is a treat in a sense that it's such a spectacle. Like, in a sense that, to me, like, Avengers was a spectacle because all these moving parts had to happen to make Avengers happen. And then in this movie, there's so many moving parts that happen, bringing over, in the trailers you see some of these other villains from the other Spider-Man movies come. Like, that's a spectacle treat to me. Like, so, I mean, I thought they really knocked it out of the park, really. Besides little nitpicky Todd stuff. So I fully endorse this movie. I think everyone, if you're even interested slightly, you need to see it in theaters. Like, I don't think this movie will, it'll translate well to the smaller screen, but it, like, the impact of the movie won't be there, I don't think, if you don't see it in theaters. So that's where I'm going to end, because I don't know really what else to say, and I don't want to ramble on and, like, get, possibly slip something. So, Eden, what did you think of this movie?
I'm coming right out with it. I loved it. Like, I don't think I've been burned out on superhero movies. It's like a general idea. Like, after Endgame, it was kind of like, well, good, we did it. Like, we won superhero movies. Like, we don't need to come back to this. And I mean, I watched Far From Home again, like, a couple months ago, and I liked it a lot. Like, the Mysterio fighting in that, and, like, the action sequences with that villain, who I really like, was just, like, top notch and brilliantly thought out. And I thought that there was a lot of good things in there. And I haven't seen Black Widow, I haven't seen Shang-Chi, I haven't seen Eternals. Like, I haven't had any drive, really, to go back to the well for a lot of it. This one I was hyped about, and it lived up to every piece of that hype. We talked a lot about how there was no way this movie was living up to the expectations placed upon it, and I think it met or exceeded in my mind. Like, it was long and didn't feel it. like the entire time I was watching it, just like, yeah, I'm in. They fixed a lot of the Marvel problems. I thought, like, they really showcased the quippiness in places where quippiness made sense and let dramatic tension like ride in places where we would have seen it undercut or would have seen them cut away in any other Marvel movie. Like, they really just let that breathe in a way that they don't usually do. A lot of the characters who you didn't think, their interactions were just very, very cool. You mentioned multiple villains. It was an overpacked mess in the best way possible. I think the thing that Marvel does very well is overpack their stuff, and it doesn't feel like it. Like, it's not like Batman Forever, or Batman and Robin, where it's just like, here's 27 villains and just F it. Like, we're just making screen time for it. Like, it felt good. Like, everyone in there made sense to be in there. A couple of the action sequences were a little static, but there was also some really interesting and dynamic, like, action stuff going on. So I liked a lot of that. And it's the first time that Tom Holland Spider-Man really grew into the role for me and felt like, my interpretation of Peter Parker was represented on the screen by him. And I really, really liked what he brought to the role. I think that, like, to one of the points that you made, Todd, like, I think that I get where you're coming from with it seems like the Avengers just clean up their own messes. It seems like the Avengers clean up Tony Stark's messes, with special assist whoever's name is on the marquee. But this one, like, drove it home. Like, this one was the first time that Parker took actions, suffered the consequences, and then had to deal with that. And for reasons that made sense for the character. Like, it was such a growth movie, I think, for that portrayal. And it's one of those threequel things where it almost retroactively makes me appreciate the other installments more than I did, because now it's part of that journey. And some of the flaws that I had with them in previous installments were now, hold on, just wait. Like, this is part of the story being told instead of a thing that was omitted. Like Cap never saying Avengers Assemble for 10 years of Marvel movies, and so that he can drop it in Endgame. Like, it felt like that. So, like, I really appreciated it. I really loved it. I think that if you're not familiar with the other Marvel properties, I think that you could still enjoy this movie. I think any familiarity with Marvel and the Spider-Man mythos and all that other stuff, especially, like, what we've seen on the big screen, is just a gigantic force multiplier. I think it probably plays to just about anyone, but I think that if you come in with foreknowledge, it only makes your life better. There it is. Matthew.
There it is. Well, you guys covered a lot of ground there. I'm not going to rehash what you said. I agree with both of you in what you said. And what I'm going to say about this movie is that I think this was really about the Tom Holland Peter Parker character growing up. In previous movies, there was a lot of, like, high school antics. There was, like, a lot of, I'm a young teenager dude and I'm doing what I do. And also I'm a superhero and I have to figure that out. And that made sense. In this movie, Eden, you mentioned it. He really had to deal with some consequences. Some major stuff went down. There were some big dramatic moments and emotional moments in this movie that I think gave it more gravitas than we've seen in previous Spider-Man movies, with Tom Holland's iteration of that. And I loved that. I thought that this felt like a bigger movie than those other Spider-Man movies. It felt more in the realm of like an Avengers movie, as far as like the bigness. Now, Todd, I hope you'll appreciate that the world was not really endangered too much in this movie. It was mostly self-contained, although we do have other universes seeping into ours, so maybe there was a touch of that. But I really liked this. I thought it was a great example of a superhero movie, and yes, I agree with both of you that if you are any kind of Marvel fan, if you are any kind of superhero movie lover, go see this in the theater. It's worth it to see it on the big screen, but certainly see it, and you will if you fall into those categories. You'll definitely see this movie, and I'm gonna say you're gonna like it. That's what I'm gonna say.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, how many, as we get into the rating system here, how many web shooters do you give this movie, whether they be organic web shooters or mechanical web shooters? Both are represented in previous movies, and we obviously know Tom Holland uses the web shooters, the mechanical ones. So, what do you give this movie from 0 to 5? Obviously 5 being the best web shooters, because then you have 5 for every appendage, kind of. And 0 being the worst, because then you have 0. Eden?
I'm real mad about all this. How does 4.8 grab you? That's where I'm at.
That's your rating.
There were, there were some definite like flaws, and it's a Marvel movie. I think that it's less formulaic than most of them. It kind of like was allowed to breathe on its own, and it had that very tentpole feel, like you talked about, where it felt on the scale of like the Avengers and Endgame and Infinity War. Like it felt like this is one of the big ones. Like it felt not skippable if you're trying to watch the MCU. And it really feels like a jumping off point for the rest of this phase. And I think that it felt like that. It's the first time I've been excited. Like there was a preview for the next one, like post all credits on this one, and I didn't super care about that movie, and then watching this one and seeing that trailer was like, yeah, tomorrow, like whatever, let's just go. It's real late, I gotta be up, but hey, if you have it, roll it. Like, let's just do it. I got like real hype again, and it's been a long time since I felt like just genuinely excited for superhero movies, and this movie did a lot to rekindle that. So I feel very good about that. I'm calling it 4.8.
Wow.
4.8.
There
Nice.
you have it. I'm gonna go, and just another thing about being in the theater, like we're here opening night, and the theater was packed, and that's great to see and feel, and there was such excitement in the theater for this. Many times multiple people at the same time exclaiming out in the theater, which I don't usually like, but tonight I was fine with it because it was capturing the excitement of being at the movies to see something that is just starting and nobody else has seen yet.
No one made it a conversation, which is what I appreciated. Like, it was just, like, noises of, oh, or, oh, no. Like, it was, like, those kind of just, like, I can't hold it ins, which I don't mind nearly as much as someone who needs to drop their cool one-liner.
And then there was the guy who was recording the whole movie.
Well,
I didn't notice that.
He was like right in front of you.
No, I didn't notice it at all.
Yeah, phone up almost the entire movie.
Yeah.
I thought he was
Wow.
tweeting. No, you're right though.
Anyway, so that being said, I did enjoy myself a great deal. I have positive vibes, feelings, and I'm going to go with 4.4 web shooters out of 5 for this movie, which is a good rating.
Yeah,
An excellent rating, actually.
nice.
Todd?
Well, I knew it was coming down to me to rate, yet I did not think about it. Like we've talked about all the incredibly great things about this movie, so obviously I'm going to give it a very positive rating. Stuff that has jumped into my mind though, of like one big negative that I can't believe I didn't talk about, because it's not really a spoiler. We all know Jamie Foxx is in the movie, reprising his role as Electro, or I don't even know if he's ever called Electro. He is Electro, but I wasn't the biggest fan of his complete character change. Like, he's very, very different from the last movie we saw him in and his character. And that it just sat wrong with me. But
I thought that was explained in movie. I caught dialogue that made that make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it further because
Sure, understood.
But we will discuss when this is over. Yeah, but honestly, that's again me nitpicking. So I'm gonna go ahead and go. I was pretty much settled on like a 4.3 earlier, and that's where I'm at. Like, positive theater experience besides the guy recording the movie. I struck up a nice conversation with the person I was sitting next to, which was fun. And yeah, overall great. We obviously all 3 of our scores say you should see it in the theaters.
That they do. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Go see this movie.
That was just really exciting. Like, I'm just really happy that happened. I'm happy I managed to sync up schedules to come out here and watch it with you. Like, I'm glad that all that happened the way that it did. That's great.
Agree. Great. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we review Spider-Man No Way Home. We gave it an excellent rating of 4.5 out of 5 web shooters.
Nice.
So yeah, that's pretty high. And thank you for listening to our podcast. Please keep downloading and clicking and listening. We like when people do that. We like when people enjoy it. We're going to make it no matter what, so you might as well listen to it.
Helps us out.
Helps us out in some ways.
Not really.
Yeah.
Besides our maybe a boost to the ego.
Boost to the ego. Boost our egos more and more, guys and girls and non-binaries everywhere. Yeah, thanks for supporting our podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da-da.
da da da.